Welcome to the Southern Steep, the public health and social justice podcast brought to you by NASDAD. Much like brewing stronger tea, this platform aims to brew stronger community by centering the voices of community leaders and their innovative work in the Southern United States. My name is Nicole Elenoff, and I'm here with my amazing hostess with the mostest, Torrian. Hey, Torrian.
Hey, Nicole. How you doing?
I'm doing pretty good. It's a Friday.
Yeah, and it's a beautiful, good 70-degree Friday here in DC. So I'm excited. I'm excited for the weekend.
It's springtime. It's almost the weekend. And I think we're entering into a hot girl summer territory.
Listen, hot girl summer. Absolutely. Folks going to be ready to get out and it's going to tear up the towns. Okay. All of them.
Yeah. All of them. But do it safely. But anyway, we can go into a whole thing on that. But I am so excited today because we are going to be joined by an amazing guest, and that is the Justine Ingram. And it's also going to be our second time getting to speak with her. I am calling this our redemption story.
We love a good redemption story.
So welcome, Justine. Justine Ingram is amazing. She is a capacity building specialist with the Southern AIDS Coalition. And we're going to let Justine tell us a little bit more about all of the incredible things she does. So Justine, welcome to the Southern Steep.
Hey, y'all. Thanks for having me. Bear with me because I'm country. So y'all doing a Southern Steep, and I'm probably the most Southern thing y'all have heard. So, hey, everyone. Thanks for having me.
We're so happy to have you on. And tell us, how are you? How are you doing?
I'm doing good. It's been an interesting few months. I got married on the 11th. And so...
Congratulations.
Oh my gosh. Congrats.
Thank you. So, I guess I'm officially an adult now.
You a married woman.
I was married now.
You's married.
Why that? You just took that right out of my mouth. I was so going to say that. You's married now.
All right. Well, now we need to know. Can you share some details? You got married on the 11th. Tell us a little bit about the ceremony, and congratulations.
Thank you. So I have been with my partner for some years now. I think before, we weren't able to get married. But as y'all know, in 2016, they passed the Equal Marriage Act so everyone can get married, but it just wasn't time for us yet. And so I really think during this pandemic, it really put things into perspective for us. And honey, we're in this for the long haul. And so we had been talking about getting married for months. And originally I wanted to get married on Valentine's Day because I just think it's so cliche and just, that's the day you can't forget, but we went and got married. So we didn't actually have a ceremony because of the pandemic. And so it was just me and him, and we went to the Justice of the Peace and we got married. And of course our families acted really, really dramatic, but we're going to do something probably next year, probably have a ceremony. But yeah, I'm married. So I'm so happy. So happy. So.
For people who are listening in, you're not able to see Justine's face right now, but she is glowing. Celebrating love.
Yes, love all over the place. In the middle of a panty. Love in a panty.
Panorama. Yes.
So much joy. Congrats.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So, wow. So much love. So much joy. All right. You're a married woman.
Mm-hmm.
You are a capacity building rock star. You have a lot of hats, but I just named two of them now. can you share a little bit about what are some other things that you're working on, what initiatives you're working on? Tell us a little bit about how Justine is making an impact in the South.
Absolutely. So, in addition to Southern AIDS Coalition, where I am the capacity building specialist for community investments, I'm also the program manager for Trans Housing Atlanta program. So, we are a nonprofit located here in the Atlanta metro area, and we service the transgender and gender non-conforming community that are experiencing homelessness or at risk of being homeless. And so we just celebrated a victory last week. The organization was started by a group of advocates here in Atlanta in 2014. And I don't know if y'all know Cheryl Courtney Evans, but she's passed on. Dee Dee Shamley, Tony Michelle, Tori Cooper, like all of the Atlanta greats kind of sat down and decided, to come up with a solution to the homelessness that the transgender community here was facing. Through that, Trans Housing Atlanta program was formed. What's unique about the Trans Housing Atlanta program, or THAP as we call it, is that we are truly, truly grassroots. So we get no major funding. We don't take any government funding. Everything is just through donations or through unsolicited funding. So just last week, we have a capital campaign that we got over $100,000 for, and we started that in 2014. And so now we are actually talking about purchasing our own property for the trans community here, which is a big thing. It has taken years, but we are super, super excited about that. In addition to our capital campaign, we do case management services. So if you're homeless and you're transgender here in Atlanta, more than likely, I will come into contact with you and try to connect you to some services and some resources. So I work with almost all of the community-based organizations here and assisting them with housing, but more importantly, just educating them how to treat transgender and gender non-conforming people. So as we believe that, if there is a homeless shelter here or there are homeless systems here, instead of just referring them out to other trans folks, change the structure of your organizations to be more affirming and accommodating to those individuals. So housing is a human right. And I think that me working with that organization has kind of opened up my opportunities as far as into how I advocate for folks. And then also I do want to mention that within Atlanta, HOPWA, so housing for people who are living with AIDS, is almost non-existent here. So we've always had issues with housing folks, and particularly those who are transgender when it comes to just finding safe and affirming housing for them. So I'm a constant advocate for that. We do know that folks who are living with HIV, if they aren't stably housed, and that affects, how they take their medications and how they make doctor's appointments. And so, yes, I'm really, really active into that. I am the person who will call the mayor's office every single day and just give a piece of my mind. At my last job, it would be call the mayor office Wednesday. And every Wednesday, I would just call and leave a message and be like, girl, So, but in addition to that, I have built some strong collaborations. So there's an organization here in Atlanta that is ran by a cisgender Black gay male who actually does have a trans sibling. Me and him kind of went in together and opened up a transitional house for trans women who are living with HIV. And so we do have some place for them to go, as well as able to offer wraparound services in order for them, to get all of the things they need and move into independent living. Also, I sit on the board of directors. I was just elected as the board secretary for Georgia Equality and Equality Foundation of Georgia. So yeah, that's a big, big thing. I started as an intern with them in 2016 with actually Torrian, by the way. Like we would sit at the desk together. So this is like full circle. But
yes.
It's good to come in as an intern and not really know anything or know my place, and then actually come in back as on the board of directors as the board secretary. And then recently, I was just appointed to Out Georgia Business Alliance, to the Transgender Gender Non-Conforming 360 initiative. And what we are doing is we are trying to implement employment practices, laws, policies, education, so that we can get transgender gender non-conforming people hired and with jobs, as well as to make their experience in the workplace more accessible and more affirming. So on top of all of that, I do a lot of like outside community projects as well. So next week, I'm hosting a food drive for the Atlanta TGNC community, as well as just everything else that people need me to do. So I'm all over the place.
A woman with many hats, y'all.
Wow. Like, that is all I can say after all of that, right? Wow. It's all of this is like great stuff, right? And I really, it's funny when you look back, right? In 2016, I was there at Georgia Equality. You were there, and like you said, full circle moment, right? Here we are now, 5 years later, doing capacity building and doing work within the community, right? And I think, a lot of the work that you are talking about is really centering, the TGNC community, but also really focusing on housing, right? Do you want to speak a little bit about like where that passion to really address housing came from, and like what continues to push you forward to advocate for housing rights for TGNC?
Absolutely. So when I first transitioned, and I transitioned at around like 17, 18 is when I started my process. I love my family to death, but they were very, very unaware and uneducated on trans folk. So for those who don't know me, because I don't a lot of times share my personal story, but I was adopted by my paternal grandparents, me and my twin brother, at a very early age. So these are folks who were from a different generation, from very, very, very one of the poorest counties in Georgia, Hancock County, Sparta, Georgia. And my family has a deep-rooted history into civil rights, as well as in public offices. So, I didn't quite fit the narrative of pretty much a Black excellence family. And so it was a lot when I transitioned. So unfortunately, I had to kind of grow up a little bit faster than my siblings and my cousins. So I was unstably housed for about 4 or 5 years. So I would sleep on people's sofas, floors. I remember some days I would just be in my car crying because I had nowhere to go. I got engaged into the subculture, so survival, sex work, whatever I needed to do to eat and to survive. And I was very, very, depressed. However, I did realize that I had some type of privilege because my family is educated people. So I knew after a while, they would come around from doing their own research and having their own understanding, that they would come around and kind of support me. And so after that, I think I was 22, 23, I was able to re-enroll back into college. However, I made a lot of close relationships with folks who are like me. And specifically in 2015, I had 2 friends who were murdered, transgender women who were murdered down where I was from, very heinous crimes. And their issues was, they didn't have the luxury, they didn't have the stability to be housed. So medical care, substance abuse, anything, all of that was something that highly played into their life and ultimately led up to their demise. And so I vowed to myself on, in their memory that I would make sure, because I was the one who made it out of, that lifestyle, that I would continue to just do the work to make sure that not only I don't have to go back there, but for my loved ones and my family and my friends, that they won't have to, experience that hurt as well. What has happened is that transcribed into something a lot bigger than what I thought it was. I just wanted to make sure nobody had to sleep outside on the concrete at night, and nobody had to, feel alone in this world. I'm from a place where there is no LGBT rights, there is no support systems. And so inevitably, in order for me to work, even when I got my degree, I had to come to Atlanta. So fun story, when I was interning at Georgia Equality, I was still living in my hometown, and I would drive 2 hours to Georgia Equality every day, 2 hours there and 2 hours back. I also went to Clayton State University, so I would drive to school every single day because I knew I couldn't stay in the dorms or anything. And, just that will and determination to finish stuff just kind of pushed me to that point. So sometimes, I always just sit down and I remember, and I'm just so thankful that, God spared me, because I have been in a lot of touchy situations, and that, someone took the opportunity to invest in me. Chanel Haley, shout out, girl, to, change my life. So like I tell people, I was the client. I was the person that you were hunting down to make an appointment. I was the person who, was getting into trouble. I was the person who was standing outside trying to wait until the next, lick or whatever comes in so I can survive. And that I made it out of that. I'm always going to be grateful and humble, and I'm always going to do whatever I have to do to make sure no one else goes through that. So yeah. Yeah, now I'm about to start crying because now you got me thinking.
Oh, I first of all, thank you, and for your vulnerability, right, and your honesty. I appreciate people who do this work from a place of experience, right? A place of like, I've been there before and I know what it feels like. And I want to make sure that no one else ever feels this way again. And if that's just one person, then I've done my job, or I've done what I needed to do. And so kudos to you, and I celebrate you and I honor you for your vulnerability, but also for the amazing work that you are doing down in the state of Georgia.
To echo Torrian, though, really thank you for sharing that vulnerability and sharing what has come from that place. And a lot of what I was hearing was resilience. And I know that resilience ultimately takes a lot of internal work, and just showing that resilience, that drive, that perseverance, while also recognizing the powers that were helping you get to where you are right now. Mm-hmm. And, there's a lot of discussion in this world that we're in, right? The HIV community, the HIV space, about specifically hiring folks with education, but maybe not necessarily hiring folks with experience. Mm-hmm. And you've mentioned your both the experience and your education, but I guess a question that I would have is what would you tell, you're in this capacity building, position, you are in other positions of leadership, you're a board member now of a couple of places. My question is what do you tell folks when they have those types of questions, I want to hire this person with these types of I'm doing air quotes on qualifications.
To really take yourself out of the equation. I think for a lot of folks, from what I noticed is, you're trying to fill a grant. You're trying to, check boxes out to say that, oh, we're diverse, and you're not really looking inside of that person. My biggest thing, and especially when it comes to transgender people of color, Black trans women, we don't have necessarily the experience and the skills to come into someone's organization and lead, even though we do have that experience. So even myself, I question myself at times because, I come into spaces and I just think to myself that, I don't belong here. This is not me. This is not, am I just here just to be the pretty Black trans face that looks good on paper? Or, are they really, using me? Or are they really utilizing me for my talents? I think about, when it comes to jobs and applying, I think about other folks that, may not have that educational background, but they can do the job as good as me or even better, but they were looked over because they don't have a college degree. So I encourage people who are looking to bring folks into their organizations to just really sit down and invest. It may not even be that you can bring them on staff and pay them because, money is hard to come by, but a mentorship program, allowing them to come and volunteer, allowing them to shadow you. My mentor, Chanel, would just take me to a million meetings and just let me sit there and be like, girl, you don't have to say nothing. Just sit here and watch, learn everybody in the room. She would take me to folks' offices because I couldn't speak publicly. I was very, very shy. She would take me in there and make me talk to folks, introduce yourself, tell them what you're doing, do this, do that. So just taking that time to invest in the next generation of leadership, do that. And that doesn't always have to come with the price tag. That just comes with the true intentions in your heart. It is difficult. I come from that community, so I know exactly how sometimes, this community can be portrayed, but I also know the things that contribute to us acting or appearing to act in the way that we do. Many of us have fought, physically fought, emotionally fought our whole entire lives because we were different. And that sometimes build up a shield to you. So I may not be able to come into your interview, and sit down and talk and express myself as Mary from Pennsylvania can, because I'm Justine from the country who, grind and hustled and got everything, out of the mud. I may not be able to do that, or I may be just so excited that somebody wants to talk to me that I get in there and I just ramble and I don't know. And I'm like, oh my God, this is so nice. And I'm sitting at the table with this, or I don't know what I'm supposed to wear to an interview, or I don't know any of that type of stuff because that wasn't taught to me. So just take the time to just really sit down and just invest into one person, and you will reap what you sow.
You're just amazing. Shout out to Chanel. I love Chanel. I think the other thing that I want to point out, shout out to also Emily Brown, also formerly of Georgia Equality. But I remember one day I was having a conversation with her. And I was telling her about how someone had said to me that, you have so much potential. And she got mad, like she legit got mad at that. And she was like, I dislike when people say someone has potential. It's like, you don't have potential to do something, like you can do it, right? You're only waiting for the opportunity to show your ability to do it, right? And so she was really upset, and it made sense to me after, like, why she was upset. I was like, you're absolutely right. Like, there is no potential. We all have it in us to do. It's just us waiting for the opportunity to amplify or to showcase that specific skill. And so I think, and I say that to say, like, talking about yourself in this place of like, I get in these spaces and I don't have these things, or, I don't like doing this. It's very clear that you have the ability, right? Mm-hmm. Because you look at what you're doing, right? So the ability was always there. Justine was just waiting for the opportunity to blossom into the fullest authentic person that she can possibly be. And I'm excited, one, about the work that you're currently doing, but also about the work that's to come. especially for for the state of Georgia and the South at large. And I think one of my leading questions is then like, you're doing so much already, right? What else does Justine want to tackle? What else does Justine want to get her hands into and mix up and make work out?
My ultimate goal is to get as much as I can up here, build these connections, build these relationships, get all the knowledge, the certifications, learn systems, because I want to go back home. Back home is where they need me in a place like this. And folks at home, look at me for the first time in my life as an inspiration and a role model. I think Atlanta has I think other places, DC has a huge amount of great advocates and leaders. But from where I'm from and the areas around it, it's no one there to advocate. I know that at this point, if I was to go home, I never would find a job. I would be looked over just because of discrimination and stereotypes when it comes to folks like me. And so I want to gather as much as I can, and I just want to change the trajectory of LGBT, sexual health, policies, and all of that down in rural places across the South. I'm a country girl at heart. I love it. I love horses, pigs, cows. I love all of those things, and that's where I belong. I'm here in Atlanta for a short time, and I know it's just as soon as I'm able and as soon as I have all of the things I need, I'm going back home and I'm changing stuff. I'm not going to see another one of my sisters or my loved ones or anyone, feel alienated. I'm not going to see them being murdered and no one does anything about it. I'm not going to see people losing their lives to HIV-related complications. Like, that won't happen no more if I have something to do with it. So this is a filler for what my biggest dream is, and that is to go home and just take over. Like, for clarity, when you have smaller places and you have rural towns in Georgia, Alabama, Tennessee, Mississippi, all of those places, how we have organizations here on every single corner doing things, there's only the health department. And me learning the health department may get $100,000 for, at best, for programming and initiatives that, reduces that stigma or prep material and all of that. So I think that it takes someone down there to open up their own stuff and run it with the community in hand to kind of change that. There's no HIV education. We're ran by the church. Our elected officials are people who are church pastors and all of that. So they come with their own stereotypes and biases and their own interests. And that affects your constituents. That affects people who were born and raised in these communities. That affects them. So that's what I want to do. I don't want to come in here and take somebody's lead role at the CDC, because that's not me. That's not Justine. I don't want to be the person who is always on the biggest interviews and TV shows and that, because that's not Justine. Justine is for the people and want to do the work for the people, and she want to go home and just help the folks who need it the most.
Speaking it into existence, you have put it onto the universe. It is now on a podcast. So, I have this saying, like, if you don't write it down, it's not real. But now I'm adapting it to, if you don't speak it into existence on a podcast, then, maybe the universe can't hear it. It has been received loud and clear. And you're real, like, I'm hearing you packing up a bunch of these seeds and bringing them to your community to plant them and water them with the excellence that just shines through. And yourself, and like, that is one of the most powerful gifts that you could ever have, knowing who you are.
Right. Absolutely. And it's needed. I will say that I lost some family members last year. My aunt, Edith Jacqueline Ingram, make sure y'all Google her. She was the first African-American female probate judge in the United States. So just from her legacy and just how much she supported me And, you know, my family doesn't understand, but they know I do something. So, but how they support me, and they're like, you know, don't forget, you know, where you come from, and don't forget that you have to help the folks who need it the most. And also, just a funny story while we're on this podcast. I was working at Fulton County Board of Health. I was a transgender coordinator there, the first, at Fulton County Board of Health. And we had a statewide HIV meeting. And they actually had it in Macon, Georgia, which is about 15 minutes from my hometown. And so I was there, and there was a guy that was like doing a session. And I kept looking at him because I'm like, I know this man. Like, I know this man. I don't know where I know this man from, but I know this man. And so after the session, after the workshop, he said his name, and I was like, that's my aunt's brother. Like, that's my aunt's brother or whatever. So I came up to him, and he was like, I was waiting for you to come talk to me. And he was like, Justine, like, I'm so proud. He called my nickname because, you know, I'm from the country, I have nicknames. But he was like, I'm so proud of you. Continue to do what you do, but don't come back home yet because we're not ready for you yet. So just stay, continue to do what you do. And then when it's time for you to come back home, we'll let you know to come back home. And so I was like, got it, noted, and left. So
divine intervention will show you the way.
That is like, I love that story. Divine intervention, definitely. So you've mentioned a couple times how you are a country girl. Mm-hmm. You are a country girl. What is it that you love so much about the South? We know you're from the South, but like, what is it about the South that you really love?
I just love the culture. Like, I love the traditions. And growing up, I didn't know that, things were different and people like acted differently and was interested in different things. I just thought everybody was the same. Like, I thought in the summertime, we go to the deep country and we ride on back of the trucks and take ropes and get on horses. And it's like pigs and cows and stuff. Like, I thought that, and it was just the best time. It was just so carefree. I love how, we cook and how family is such deeply rooted. Like, where I'm from, we don't necessarily have homeless people. People are unsteadily housed, but it's the South. So, your back porch is open so someone can just go lay down on your back porch and, you leave some food out there for folks who may need it. Like, I just love that culture and that family and that sense of closeness. Like, we still do have our issues because we are rooted in the Bible, and it's the Bible Belt. So, LGBT communities and stuff, we're very much ostracized, but it's still that deep sense of culture and family and values and stuff that is instilled in us. And I didn't quite notice that I was just such different until I started coming up here and working. And everybody's like, let's go get vegan and vegetarian and pho. And I'm like, what are y'all talking about? Like, I don't know what this is. Like, so just love it. Like, hey, I love my collard greens and my pig feet. And I don't know. I just love it. Like, I just feel so at home. Like, even when I'm going home now to visit, it's like I'm on 75 and I'm going south. And then I get off the exit and it's like, everything is so much slower and time like stands still. And, you're slowing your car down because you're not going 80, like you're going 45 and you see everybody like waving at you and stuff. And you just feel so safe in a way, I guess. So I just love that part about the country. I just love all of that. I love the way my family talks. Like, I'm the proper one. So that they have their own language, their own lingo, their own style of cooking. I just love it.
I learned recently about pot liquor.
Oh, yes.
From the collard greens. Mm-hmm. Do you go for the pot liquor?
Absolutely. Like, me and my husband was talking last night because we make some black-eyed peas and put a little ham hocks in there. And we were like, the best part is you have to make your roux. So, your roux is what you use to like season and give all that flavor in your food. And then I'm like, yeah. And then you take that. So I was like, for instance, I was telling him, like, we kind of talked through it. And I'm like, yeah, like when I'm making neck bones and stuff and I have that good roux with all that nasty sodium in it, like I'll use the pot liquor to put and make my rice have that flavor and that seasoning too. Like even with babies, like if the baby is too skinny, you put a little pot liquor in their bottle and that kind of fattens them up. Like, yes, pot liquor. Yes, ma'am, Nicole. Yeah, we love it.
When we're out of this pandemic, I'd love to share some pot liquor with you.
Yes, we have some pot liquor.
It's a date.
It's a date.
Oh my God. Yeah, I think you probably are. Yeah, this is I love talking to you. This is great for me. And it's like every time that you and I talk, I learn just a little bit more about you that makes me just a little bit more in love with you and just the work that you're doing. It's like it just seeps through you, like community, advocacy, genuineness, like it just seeps from you, and I appreciate it. You don't find that often. And we've talked before on this podcast that like I've worked around the world. I've seen my share of people in this work around the world, and you don't often see and encounter people who are authentic about the work that they do and who just, that there is a passion for it and that they're not doing it for self-aggrandizement and for the applause. They are doing it because this is what they love and this is what they just grew into, this work. And so I am always happy to hear from you. And I am a fan. Okay. I am a fan. And so, what do you want to see from the South? Let's add that in there. Like, what do you want to see from the South? We talked about a lot, how you love the South. We talked about how, they have some issues that you are diligently working on and all of the platforms that you have. But like specifically, what are some of the things that you want to see for the South?
I just want the South to be truly, and I know a lot of people say it, but I want the South to be truly equitable for all people, no matter who you are. The thing is about the South and about, to be honest, poverty is a vicious cycle. And so if your grandmother was in poverty, then more than likely your mother was in poverty, then more than likely you are. And so it's not a lot of opportunities. The South is not equitable for all different folks. I want to see that the South pushes to be more equitable, to be more fair, to give folks the things that they need and deserve, and to just stop with that like bureaucracy and that power and that dictatorship that so often the South is run by. So even within the state of Georgia, I haven't lived anywhere other than Georgia. So even when it comes to our government officials and the folks who are leaders, it's very much like a kingdom. So his granddaddy was the senator. His granddaddy was the governor. Now the son is. Now the cousin is. Now this and now that. And the things that they do and the agenda and stuff that they push is just, it's not for everybody. It's for them. It's for them to get richer. It's to keep the minority communities down and out, to be, basically your servants and basically the folks that you just throw things out of. I think back in November, and the article came out this year, was down in Macon, Georgia. And Macon, Georgia is kind of the country city of all the rest of the country areas down in rural Georgia. And there was an LGBT ordinance, the first non-discrimination ordinance that was passed through city council. So city council agreed on it, they voted on it, they approved it. But when it got to the mayor's desk, he vetoed it for religious reasons. And so, honey, I contacted the paper and read the fool out of the mayor down there, because you will not do that. You will. And my family was like, I didn't tell anybody about the article, but everybody was reading the Sunday paper and they was like, girl, why am I just reading something? I think my father called and he was like, I was reading something about Ted Cruz and was like talking about him and stuff about some mess that Ted Cruz was doing. I look over and I see Justine Ingram and I was like, wait a minute. And it was you. And they was just like, continue to do that, continue to fight him because you're keeping the legacy of your family. But it's just little bitty things like that. Why is it so difficult for y'all to believe that everybody deserves the same rights? Even for myself, like I've talked to folks who have been our representatives in DC and all of that and got on conference calls with them, which were Republicans. But luckily, honey, Miss Stacey Abrams flipped the whole state, honey, and they can't take. So Park Cannon, we
Yes.
because she didn't come to play. But why is it so difficult for y'all? Or why is it so difficult for y'all to accept that everybody deserves the same rights and the same freedoms? It shouldn't be that if I'm gay or if I'm transgender or if I have a disability or if English isn't my first language and I'm living in these communities that I'm not able to get a job, or people can be like, we just don't hire your kind here, which happened to me. That we don't hire your kind here, or that you're treated bad into medical facilities. That shouldn't happen. And there needs to be protections and stuff in place to prevent that from happening. And to know that if you do it and you violate it, there are consequences and repercussions behind it, because we're all humans first. And so that is what I want to see.
I have a question for you. I read yesterday that your beautiful governor, Mr. Kemp, signed into law like this sweeping voting rights bill that essentially that includes making it a crime for people to bring water or food to someone who is standing in line to vote. Right. Mm-hmm. So thinking about like what you just spoke about and the difficulties and the challenges and the biases and these kind of things that show up. How can, and also thinking about like the advocacy and the work that you do, like calling the mayor, like, we're not doing that. Right. Like what on the grassroots level, right? What in community level, what can be done to kind of, to replicate what Stacey did for the federal piece, right? And replicate that on the state level so that, the people of Georgia are able to vote.
So the first thing that needs to be did is young minority leaders need to start putting themselves into those positions. So it starts with local elections. Run for mayor of Macon, run for city council, infiltrate those systems so that we can get the folks that have been sitting in those seats for 40 years out of there. Also, what happens is, in my opinion, is that when we see representation of folks who looks like us that are running for offices, that encourages us to go out and vote. I wouldn't want to vote if there's two old white men running against each other. Like, what is the need? Nobody's for me anyway. But when Stacey Abrams was running, we were so inspired to get out there and go vote and stuff, because that was somebody who looked like us. That is somebody who talked like us. Stacey Abrams would be down at the Piggly Wiggly in like the most ruralest places, and everybody on Facebook would be like, Stacey Abrams is at the Piggly Wiggly. Like, go out. She's registering people to vote. She's taking us to the polls. Like, go and do things like that. She laid the groundwork, the framework, but it takes us as minorities, as up-and-coming young minority leaders, influencers, to go out there and put yourself on that ballot or whatever and have people vote for you. Whether you win or not, it's about going there and starting that step and encouraging folks to go out and do the same. So I probably could go down there and put myself on the ballot to run for mayor. More than likely, I wouldn't win, but it was still the fact that Justine, the Black trans woman from around here, was attempting to run for mayor, and the folks who are behind me will rally behind me, and then the next election, we can push somebody else to win. That's Stacey Abrams' technique. That's what it takes for us to do. Larger federal elections are won by local elections. Water authority, city council, district attorney, mayor, like those are the things that what we have to start with.
Justine for mayor. And I would love to donate to that campaign.
I don't know.
Well, I hear there is some studies that the more you ask a woman to run, the more basically for men, you can only ask them one time and it's like, yeah, you said to run. So, and I'm a man, I'm going to run. But like for women, it takes so many more opportunities and persistence because of so much of what you've shared. So I'm going to ask you a couple of times if you'd like to run, because I really do believe in you.
No, not yet. Possibly down the future. But also what I will say is that in order for me to go and get a leadership position down there, such as mayor, I have to make sure everything is 100% checked off and right, those boxes, because I don't want to leave anybody a room to not believe that I can do what I said I'm going to do. I know my work ethic is there. So if I said I'm going to do this and we're going to pass this and we're going to do that, we're going to do it. But, specifically in Georgia, we have smear campaigns and stuff. So looking into my past, yes, my past is not squeaky clean, but it's about what I'm doing now. So what you won't say is that I'm not educated. What you won't say is that I don't have experience, that I don't have outcomes that you can see that I made changes and impact. That's what you won't say about me. All you can say is that I'm a Black trans woman that was a former this or a former that. So that's what my goal is. So once all of that is done, then I will definitely entertain the fact for Nicole to run for mayor.
It's not for me. It's for Macon.
100% agree. And it's interesting. I think politics are shifting, and I think we may come into a space where the Justines of the world, right? The persons with these not so pretty past are going to be those people who we find in these positions eventually, because that's the way it's going to be, right? That's the way that we are going to make real change. And so, listen, you have given us a wealth of knowledge and a wealth of, you have brightened up my Friday even more than this beautiful weather up here in DC. And so I'm following you, on social media platforms. How can other people get in touch with you? How can other people follow you? How can other people see and invest in you and the work that you're doing?
So follow me on Facebook. It's Justine Ingram. So Justine Ingram, Ingram. I have 5011 email addresses, but if you contact me on Facebook, more than likely, I can get back to you and you can see the work that I do. So just last week, and I just want to shout some people out, I had a young lady who moved into the transitional house. She was living with HIV, was not connected to care, had been out of care for months. And the system is so crazy here that someone actually didn't have medication for months. I didn't understand it. And before I get up and throw this computer, because I'm going to get mad all over again, I'm going to move on. But anyway, she came into the transitional house and I was like, where's your stuff? And she was like, this is it. And she had like a Kroger grocery sack. And I was like, oh, no, ma'am, she will have clothes. And so I made a quick Facebook post and about 8 or 9 people just like immediately contacted me and was like, where should we drop them off at, Justine? And I'm like, thank you, Tens. Like within an hour, I got this baby some underwear, some clothes and stuff. And she was just so happy and just so ecstatic. So things like that, I always post little nuggets. Again, we're having a food drive and all of those things. So follow me on Facebook. That is the best way to see what I'm doing and see how you can support, because I will ask. And I will see, like, if you're a true advocate, put your money where your mouth is, and get these girls and guys and whoever, it doesn't matter, give them the things that they need. So type me in on Facebook. I don't have an Instagram. Instagram is for, my keys. I can't give y'all that, but I do have a Facebook.
Justine, it has been a real treat. Thank you so much for coming on to, the podcast for our redemption story. Really, the song I'd like to share is Shine Bright Like a Diamond. And I just, you, like Torrian said, you've really helped make this day even brighter and shinier like a diamond that you are.
Thank you. And thank you all just for giving me this opportunity. I just get excited for just doing things like this because I just never thought in a million, like literally, I've never thought in a million years that I'll just be able to even have a laptop to just sit here and look at a camera and stuff and talk to you all. So just thank you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart just for giving me this opportunity just to kind of share and give you a little insight of my life. Like, it's very, very monumental. Thank you so much.
Listen, this is the trial run, okay? You might well get used to things like this, okay? This is going to be your future really soon. So get used to it. Get comfortable, okay? Get comfortable behind that laptop and behind the microphone and speaking your truth and your power about community and about work and advocacy, because your future is so bright, and I'm so excited to just be able to watch it and be able to say, I know her. Yes, the mayor. I know her. We worked together briefly. I know her.
She's the mayor. Justine, it's amazing. You're amazing. So it's time for a segment that we call the Southern Charm, not the Southern Gem, the Southern Charm. Here we highlight the work of someone or an organization that is charmingly impacting the South. And on this episode, we'd like to highlight My Sistah's House, Memphis. Founded in 2016 and based in Memphis, Tennessee, My Sistah's House is a trans, non-binary-led nonprofit providing firsthand experience as well as field research to create a one-stop shop for finding doctors, social groups, and safe spaces for the trans community. They provide emergency shelter, access to sexual health services, social services, provide survival kits and hot meals to people experiencing homelessness, regardless of race, color, sexuality, gender, or any other group. In this last year, they've provided emergency housing to 35 TLGBTQ individuals and successfully transitioned them into permanent housing. My Sistah's House is currently working on building 20 tiny homes, and to learn more about the organization and this incredible project and work that they do, you can visit www.mshmemphis.org. That is mshmemphis.org. Torrian, Justine spent a lot of time talking about her passion for providing housing and support for individuals living with HIV, individuals of trans experience. And I wanted to share about My Sistah's House Memphis because they're doing some similar and also incredible work providing housing to folks. Not just emergency housing, but providing a pipeline for more permanent housing. It's just so incredible the type of grassroots efforts that are taking place to really fill these gaps that really shouldn't be here in general. There really shouldn't be gaps. Housing's a right. I just wanted to share about My Sistah's House and our Southern Charm today.
Yeah, I think it's important, as Justine said as well, and as what you just mentioned, is like housing is a human right? And it's something that is very important, especially for people who are living with HIV, right? And as Justine noted, not being stably housed can affect your adherence to your medication, can affect, you adhering to appointments. So there's a lot of stuff, that goes into having housing. And so it's just important. And I appreciate all the organizations who are community grassroots led, that is let's create solutions to the challenges that we see in the community and not wait for these other organizations and these other entities to do it for us. And so I am always happy to hear about other grassroots organizations that's coming up doing the work that we in community often talk about need to be done in a way that is community centered, right? And so I appreciate that, the work that, the Sistah's House, as well as the Trans Housing Atlanta program that Justine referenced. I think they're all important, but like you said, there shouldn't be gaps, but it's always community's responsibility to fill them. So
there's so much more work to be done. And I think continuing to listen to the communities, invest in the community. Justine said it, advocates, if you got money, put your money where your mouth is, make the donations. My Sistah's House has a GoFundMe out right now. They're raising money for being able to continue the incredible services that they're offering. And we'll make sure that folks have the information for that GoFundMe. Let's support. This is really important. Thank you so much for listening to The Southern Steep. My name's Nicole.
And my name is Torrian Baskerville.
Thanks for listening.